Hi everyone, and welcome to this Pano2VR 101 image pop-up webinar. Today's webinar, as it says, we'll be looking at various ways of creating image pop-ups. And as always, I'm Martin from support, and
I'm Karen, also from support, and I'm here in the background helping, be helping Martin answer some questions. If you have a question, please use the Q&A tab. Yeah, Martin is showing you on the screen right now. And that way we have an easier time marking them and answering them for you. Also, please try and stay on topic. Our topic today is image pop-ups, so yeah. Great, so enjoy the webinar. I know you'll learn something new, even if you've been if you're an old school Pano2VR user or a new one, you will learn something new, I'm sure. So Martin, take it away, have fun, and yeah, see you later.
okay, thank you very much, Karen. Right, okay, guys. Here is Pano2VR. As you know, we've been building this project over the last few weeks. We've added an information pop-up last week. This week, we're going to be adding our image pop-up. Right, now, one of the things I wanted to quickly talk about is, well, define an image pop-up, because most people think, oh, it's a point hotspot, click it and you see an image. But also we have what we call pinned images. And as an example, if I change the viewer mode to image, what I can do is I'm just going to go to, I'll just double click once we've done that. And I've got a folder here with a couple of images in it. So I'm just going to select one, click open, and it's going to add a pinned image to Pano2VR. Now, people might say, well, this is not an image pop-up, but I disagree. I mean, you know, what I'm going to do is just quickly add this to the project. So let's just make that a little bit better. Here we go. Let's just spin that around and straighten that up. And so here is an image. And if I produce the output, you can see the pinned image there. So if you had an art gallery, you could actually put better quality images in that art gallery. But to make it pop up, all you do is when you select it, make sure that you're in the properties panel. You probably realize or not realize, but probably know by now that if you're in the properties panel, it changes to whatever you're doing. So if I click on the panorama, it's the panorama properties. But if I click on the pinned image, it changes to the properties of the pinned image. And one of the things we can give it is a click mode, and I can get it to pop out 100%. And the reason why I do 100% is because it makes it responsive. So if we do that and click it, boom, there it is. And if I wiggle around the browser, you can see it pops it out 100%. And when we click it again, it puts it back. So that's just a really quick way of achieving an image pop out. A couple of other things we can do here, give it the hand cursor. So when you hover over it, let's just do that. It changes the cursor to a hand to show the viewer that there's some interactivity. All right, so yeah, it's quite cool. And as you spin it around and do it, you'll get different fly out effects with it. So yeah, that is, if you like, a very, very quick and easy way of achieving a pop-up image or a pop-out image. Okay, so that's that one. Now, the other one, which I think everybody is familiar with, is where you have a hotspot. Click the hotspot, you see an image, and then you can close it. So that's what we're going to look at right now. So I'm going to open up the skin. Now, this is the skin that we have been building, and I've hidden everything from the tree. Now, this is going to use a hotspot to open them. So that's the first thing I want to create, is the point hotspot to open the pop-up image. Now, as you can see, we've already got the HT underscore node for changing nodes of the tour, and we created the HT underscore info for opening up information hotspots. So now we will be selecting the hotspot template and creating an HT underscore image. All right. Now, the reason why I'm using these naming conventions, let's just correct that because I got that wrong. So undercase, so lowercase, so HT underscore image. The reason why I'm doing that is Pano2VR already has these naming conventions built in. If I was to use something else, when I added an image hotspot, it would automatically put in HT underscore image to use, but I would then use that or select that. I'll show you that as and when we get to it. But anyway, so this is my hotspot. And what I want to do is keep the same sort of style that we've been using. So what I'm going to do is expand in the skin the info pop-up, and I'm going to select all of these elements and copy them. All right, I'm going to put that back, and then I'm going to paste them in. Now you can probably see by the keys at the top here, I'm using Command C, Command V. I'm on the Mac. If you're on the PC, that's Control instead of the Command key. Anyway, I've added all those elements. I'm now going to drag those and make them a child of my hotspot or my image hotspot. Okay, so all I need to do now is just select all of these to line them up and set 0, 0. Let's just put that in the middle. Here we go, 0, 0, and that's everything lined up. Now, the only thing I probably want to do is just change the text box, because that really does need to be above the hotspot. So let's just, I don't know, minus 30. No, perhaps go a little bit further than that. So minus 52. Oh, I'll leave it there. So that's basically my hotspot built. Apart from the actions, I've not given it any actions yet, but again, that will come. But the other thing I want to do is the dot. Now, when we created the node hotspot, we gave it a black dot. When we created the info pop-up, we gave it a green dot. I'm now going to change the dot to blue. Here we go. So it's just a visual way of recognizing which hotspots do what job. So you know, a blue dot will open up an image, green dot will open up an information, and everything else is pretty much the same. Now, this text box at the top here is what we call our tooltip. So when we hover over the point hotspot, that will show us the title of the point hotspot. Now, I don't know if you remember, if you were here last week, you would have seen that we actually deselected visible to make it hide, but then we gave it the logic that when I moused over the parent element, i.e. this hotspot template, when that was true, it then became visible. So that's how it shows and hides as we hover over the point hotspot. Okay, so that's my point hotspot built. So I'm just going to, actually, I'll make that visible and just move that to one side, and then I can deselect the tree. So it's still going to be there in the output, but I just don't see it in the tree. Okay, so that's my point hotspot built. And now what I want to do is look at the image loader. This is the element in the skin that's actually going to be displaying our images. And here it is. When we hover over it, it says draw external image. So I'm going to select that and click the skin, and there it is. Now, like always, I need to give it a more sensible name. So I'm going to call it what we're going to call IMAGE, and let's call it pop. So image pop, that goes with the same. I used info pop, I'm now using image pop. So again, I'm trying to keep my skins organized as I build them. So that's the idea of giving it. Now you would notice that the properties of all the element, be it a text box, a rectangle or whatever, we tend to have a common theme of properties. So like its position. You know, I'm going to anchor it in the center, and I'm going to say, right, I want it 0, 0. So therefore it's now smack bang in the middle of the skin editor. I'm going to change its size. So I'm going to say it's going to be, let's do, actually, no, I'm going to change its units to percentage. Or do I? No, I won't. I'll keep it at pixels. And let's just make it 400 by 300 pixels. There we go. So there's our external image loader. It has the scaling, so under appearance it's the same. Under rectangle it will be the same as all the other elements we've looked at. We can change the background color, we can turn the background color off, or even remove the border. But each element has its own unique tab, and for the external image loader we have our external image. Now, some of this will be worth talking about as and when we get into the build of this, because at the moment you can't see results because we haven't got it set up correctly. But basically, the external image loader is looking for a URL. So I would type in here a path to display whichever image. And I've even got a logic block to change a condition. So I could say, right, I can have one image path if the skin is less than 600 pixels wide, or a different one if it's over 600 pixels wide. I can use a logic block to do that. Anyway, I don't want to get bogged down into this too much because we want to build this pop-up and then we can come back to this. Okay, so that's the external image loader. What I will do is I'm going to deselect its visibility. I do not want it to show, because if I have that selected, if I click this little button up here, the live preview, you can see it's there. in your face, and I don't want that to start with. So I'm going to deselect that. So it's now hidden. And that's about all I'm going to do with the external image loader. What I need to do is now work on the hotspot to do something with it. So when we click the hotspot, what happens? Right, so what I would start off with is on a mouse click. The action I'm going to choose would be visibility, and I'm going to show the element an image pop-up. Now I can drop down the combi box and cycle through the elements in there, or you can just type in. So if I type in it's come up with image pop-up straight away. So I've selected that. So on click, it's going to hide itself. All right. But how's it going to, sorry, it's going to show itself, but how's it going to hide? Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy this action, select the external image loader and paste it in and modify the action on mouse click visibility, hide. Now I could leave image pop-up because that's what it is, or I could actually select self. So now I've got the situation as when I click the hotspot, it's going to show it. And when I click the image itself, it's going to hide itself. So that's the way of hiding and showing. I could have added a button as an example. I could have added a button in the corner, anchored it to the corner and given it the same close action. All right. But in this particular case, I don't want to do that, but you could if you want to. All right. So I've got the ability now to show and hide. What I haven't done yet is given it the ability to actually set the value to this image loader for the path of the image it's going to load. So just as a quick one, now I know this is all done on faith at the moment because we're not into a situation yet where I can show you this working, but if I just give it now the action of mouse click, I'm going to set a value, and the value I'm going to set, because I'm using a hotspot to show the image, I'm going to be using the hotspots URL. So I'm going to be using our placeholders. Now we've spoke about placeholders in the past and where to go on our website to see the view. Well, let's just do that. Okay, so let's just do that quickly. So if I go to our documentation, Pano2VR, if you scroll down to references, and you will see a list of placeholders, and you'll see the list of placeholders here. So if we scroll down to hotspots, I want to get the placeholder for the hotspot URL because this is where the image path will be. So I need the $HU close bracket. So that's what I need in here. So $, open and close. So hotspot URL. And the target for this is going to be the image pop-up. There we go. All right. Now, here's another little thing that you may or may not be aware of. As you're adding actions to a button or a hotspot or to whatever, it starts at the top and works down. So logically, what I want to do is I'm going to click and drag and swap these around. Now, it does happen really quickly. And in some cases like this, it probably is not going to make that much difference. But as you start to develop and build skins, you might want a mouse down to hide something and a click, which is an up action to show something. So it's important then to get the actions around the right way. So it's actually a good idea to be mindful and do it from the start. So in this case, when we click, I want to set the path to this image to display, or the image for it to display. Then I want it to show, because then it's already got the information to show the image before it shows. Otherwise, we're going to get it to show first, then load the image. All right. So it makes sense to swap those around. Okay. So that's my skin pretty much built for initially doing image pop-ups. So I'm going to save this, save the skin, and we're just going to publish this out. There we go. Now, of course, we're not going to see anything yet because what we need to do is add image hotspots. So I'm going to select hotspots. Let's just zoom out, and I'm going to add one here. So I'm going to double click to add my hotspot. I'm going to select the type of hotspot to be an image. I'm going to give it a title. So let's just do pop-up 1. And here we've now got the open folder button. Now, I'll do this again, actually. If I had something like URL, you'll see it disappears and I can put in a URL. So it's important to select the image. And as you do that, we now get this open folder, which then allows me to select an image. So let's just select it from my folder. I've got this folder called resources in my project folder. Could be anything you like, could be anywhere you like. And as long as Pano2VR can find it. So we've now got this path from resources popup1.jpg. It's in the target URL, or rather the URL of my point hotspot. So that brings us back nicely to the hotspot template when we built the point hotspot in the skin, because it's looking for that to send or to set that information to the external loader. So let's create this. We've now got our blue hotspot to say for it's the image, and when I click it, boom, we get our image. Now, for me, that's working perfectly. For anybody else watching this, it's like, there's a problem there. It's not where I want it to be. And that's because I can now talk about the settings of the external image loader. All right, but before I do, I'm going to sort of throw it back to Karen and say, are there any questions? And if so, I'll do some questions now before we get into the properties of the image loader. So Karen, have we got any questions?
Yeah, we have one question that goes back to when you were building the image, the external image. Thomas is asking, how can you show the image pop-up positioned centered exactly on the hotspot? And I think this is where you're going to go next, right?
Right, yeah. It's at the moment, this was within the properties, but I had to build a project first to show an image before I could show the properties working, because I could talk about them, but without actually a visual, it would be no good. So
yeah. So we'll get to that. Yeah,
we'll get to that. But also, I think so can you read that question back one more time?
Yeah, sure. How can you show the image pop positioned centered on the hotspot?
Right, okay, because that sounds like a different question. And that sounds like, am I creating, if I could actually put this image pop-up as a child of the hotspot template, you see, and we could have it as a fixed size. So when I click the hotspot, you see the image at the position of the hotspot and not just show the image in the center of the screen. So that is possible, but all you would do is you would change the parent-child relationship between the external loader and the hotspot template. That's not a 101 type thing. I just want to get people to pop open images. What we can do with them later, we can obviously do more advanced with pop-up images and external loaders. We can do a lot more advanced stuff. But yes, that's possible. In your scenario, which I'm thinking you're asking, is you want to be able to open the pop-up exactly where the hotspot is. And that is, yeah, you could put the external image loader on this. So wherever the hotspot is, you could then open an image wherever that hotspot is rather than in the center of the screen. So that's covering both bases on the understand. I didn't quite grasp that question.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Oh, wait, Thomas, perfect timing, Thomas. He says, yep, that's what I meant.
Right, okay, cool.
Yeah, okay. Good call on that one. Yeah, thanks. Is that's the problem sometimes, you know, a question could have 8 different answers.
Tell me about it.
So that's it for questions right now.
Right, okay, I'll crack on.
Okay.
We've got still quite a bit to do, and not a lot of time to do it. Well, all the time in the world, but that's only if you fancy getting a sleeping bag and a cup of coffee. Anyway, moving on. Right, so this is our skin then. So this is what we got. We've got the, let me think, how far did we get with this? We got to, we can open it up. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Let's try that again, shall we? Open up the hotspot and it's too big. All right, as I said, for me, that's working exactly how I wanted it to. And when I click the external loader, it hides. So that mouse click to open it and mouse click to close it is working fine. It's just visually not where I want it to be. The other thing is as well, that I want to touch on is we said about these default names. In the skin, I gave it the default name HT_image. All right. If we look, when I set an image type to, or rather a hotspot type to image, we automatically use HT_image. That's why I use it. However, I could have put, you know, image pop-up. And had I changed that in the skin, I would then just select it from the hotspot template list here. All right. So you can use custom names, but I tend to stick with what's built in because it's one less thing you've got to worry about. And if something doesn't work, you know it's not going to be because of this. All right. So that's how I roll, as they say. Right. Okay. So that's the different hotspots. Now we want to get back to this size problem. Now, this size problem is due to, let's have a look, external image. So it's underneath its own unique tab under the properties. And it's the, now we've already set a path, so that's why it's displaying the information. Loading, I've got unloaded content. Basically, if we didn't have that and we opened an image, closed it and opened another image, whilst the second image is loading, momentarily you may see a little bit of the first image. So with this selected, which is default, by the way, when we close the image loader, it unloads any evidence from the first image. So when you open up the second one, you won't see anything until it gets there. All right, so that's what that does. But it's the content scaling. This is what we're looking at. Now, at the moment, there's no content scaling. So basically, we're opening the image at its original size. So if I select the alignment of that image, because at the moment it's aligned top left, hence why we saw it expand, you know, to the right and down. If I centered it and did this, all right, you'll see that the content scaling is now different. It's just, it's not responsive, but you now see the whole image, okay? But, so what we want to do then, but what we want to do, makes lots of sense, right? If I put that back to, well, whatever, I can actually set the different, so we can say minimum. Now what the minimum will do is make it fit within the restraints of the external loader. All right, so let's just do that. And when I open it up, you'll see it's in there. Now you can see because of the shape of the image, it's fitting it horizontally. So vertically, I can see borders and I can see, or the background of the external loader and the black border all the way around it. Now I'm actually going to go in and tidy that up because I don't like to see that. So I'm going to go back to the rectangle part of its properties, deselect the background, and I'm going to take away the border width. All right. So now what I should see is only the image when I open it up, there it is, and when I close it, it's gone. All right. Now it's still not responsive, but also more importantly for me is that when I click this, the contrast between the image and the actual panorama isn't that great. So I'd like to be able to define the image. I want it more in your face. When you click the point hotspot, I want you to see that image for what it is and not be bothered with any or be distracted by the panorama in the background. So this brings me nicely to my favorite little trick, which is I'm going to click draw rectangle. Here we go, sticking it there. I'm going to call this image screen tint. All right. I'm going to anchor that 0, 0. So it's top left, as you can see here. And I'm going to give it a size of 100%. I want it to completely cover everything. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change its color to black. And then I'm going to change its opacity by using the alpha. Is alpha opacity? Is opacity alpha? Don't know. But anyway, it's going to turn it translucent. So let's put 175 in there so we can just about see it. And then what I'm going to do is get rid of the border width. I don't want that. And I will hide it. All right. So on output, I don't really want to see this. Like on the output, we don't really want to see the image loader. Okay. So brings me back to another important point, the tree in the skin. As you can see, the screen tint was the last thing we added. So it's on top of the tree. Because it's on top of the tree, it's the most forward thing that we're seeing. Now, obviously, I want the image to be in front of this. So I'm going to swap those positions around. Okay. So as it stands, when we open the external image, the screen tint is going to cover every other element apart from the image that we want to see, which is exactly what I want to do. Now, the thing is, we've now introduced this new element. So I need to show and hide that with the image. So I'm going to go to the hotspot and I'm just going to give that the action of a mouse click. We are going to go visibility and I'm going to want to show that. And it's going to be the image, what is it, screen? So S. No, I'll tell you what, let me just select that screen tint. So image screen tint. As you can see, sometimes I'll just type in, but when we've got image screen or something like that, sometimes I can't find it fast enough. It's easier just to find it from the drop down. So whatever way you find is quicker. But anyway, so mouse click visibility, show the image screen tint. All right, so when we open the image, we're showing that as well. I'm going to click this and use the keyboard shortcut to copy it. And under the image pop-up itself or the external image loader, when we click that, it hides everything, or it hides itself. So I'm just going to paste that action in and say on mouse click visibility, hide screen tint. So now we've got the two actions. So the hotspot will now show it. And when we click the image, it will now hide it. So let's just see what that does. So we click that, get the screen tint. We've got more focus on the image. Brilliant. Exactly what I want. And when we click the image, boom, it's all gone. Right. So yeah, okay. That's where we're going with that. All right then. Now, the other thing with this is we want to make it responsive. At the moment, it's not. So how can we make that responsive? Right. Well, if I go back to the image loader, we've got this scaling content. We've got max, which will just show the maximum size of the image. We've got horizontal and vertical, which basically means it will squeeze it in vertically, which basically, horizontally. So you could get borders top and bottom. The same with vertical and same with fill. We fill it up at the best. Fill is more of a diagonal type thing. But yeah, that's the different content scaling. I'm going to leave it at min to show it in the confines of the external image loader. But this is where the external image loader has quite a unique property, and that's if we make the size of this thing into percentages. All right, and if I turn around and say 80 or by 80%, all right, now what's going to happen here, and this is where the image loader is fairly unique, it will always keep the image in its proper aspect ratio or its proper dimensions. If I was to do this to, say, a rectangle and then outputted the rectangle, you would find that it would squidge up and it will go a landscape shape or a portrait shape. But with the external image loader, the loader itself will do that, but it will project the image in its proper dimensions. So let's just see this working. So here is that image. Now the external image loader is, if I look, it's active there. I can't move the screen at all, but on the sides, oh no, I can't move the screen anyway because of the screen tint, but yeah, we can see that. But if I move this around, you can see that it's now using those percentages, but it's not changing the dimensions of the image. So this is a good way of making a responsive image pop-up. All right, so that's fairly good. All right, now one of the other questions we get asked a lot is, well, I want an image loader, I want to show an image and I want to show a description of it. That's a little bit more difficult to do because we are using percentages here. But what you can do, if you wanted to, if you've got like if you've got short descriptions, line of text, we can build onto this. What I'm going to do is just hide all of these elements just to make the skin a little bit cleaner. I'm going to add a text box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this image description. Hopefully that says description. I'm going to anchor it top center. So therefore I'm going to set that to center of the skin and the top of the skin as well. All right. I'm also going to change the opacity, or rather I'm going to deselect the background, going to take away the border, and I'm going to change the text color to white. All right. This is going to serve as the description. But what I want this to do is to display whatever the description text is of the hotspot. All right. So I'm going to select the text. We are going to use the insert placeholder. I'm going to select hotspots and I'm going to select hotspot description. All right. Now, this is what I want it to do, but there is a major issue with this. And this brings us back to something we did last week, is that this placeholder can only pick up the text when the hotspot or when the mouse is over the hotspot. So this in itself isn't going to work, but what I'm going to do is copy that and then delete it, all right? Because that's the placeholder I want. What I need to do is go back to the point hotspot, and I want it like we did to say set the value to the image loader to show the image I wanted. I'm going to need to set the value of the description to this text box. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go mouse click. I'm going to say set value, and I'm now going to paste in the $HD. So dollar open bracket hotspot description, and I want it to go to the image description. So let's just find this image description, and there we go. So that's the image description. So when I click this, whatever is in that is going to, so when I click this, what's going to happen now is that if we select the hotspot, here is the hotspot's description. So this is description. All right. So this is the description I'm going to use. It could be, but as I say, this is important for this, what I'm doing now, that it's not reams and reams of paper. It's, you know, text. It's just a nice little description for it. So let's go back to the skin. So this is where I've set it now. If we go back to the skin, all right. So on the hotspot, we've said that when we mouse click, not only am I going to set the path to the image, I'm now going to set the description to this text box, which is comfortably hiding. So when we come to close the image pop-up, what I need to do is mouse click, set the value, nothing for the image description. Because if I don't, when we click this, we'll get the image description and it will be there. In fact, what I'll do is I'm actually going to delete that, and let's see that in operation. He says, now it's going to be cropped. So there it is. You can see the image description popping up there. It's going to be cropped because what I needed to do with the image description text box is it's only 100 pixels wide. All right. If I cursor down and go to its attributes, we should have remembered this from last week. We can set auto size. If I don't use word wrap, it will auto size horizontally. All right. So that's exactly what I wanted to do. Okay. So let's publish this or export this. And here you can see this is the description. But when I close this, it's still there. All right. This is why on the image pop-up itself, I'm going to do a mouse click, set value, nothing for the image description. And that is going to remove that text for me. All right. So let's just do this. When we click the hotspot, here is the description. When I click it to close it, it's gone. And there we go. And because of the size, I've chosen the 80%. I've not gone 100%. It's not covering it. And of course, it will be nicely responsive. You can still see that text. You can see that if you've got several lines here, you could get into a situation, depending on, you know, the landscape portrait of your device, that you could actually use the image to cover it. You know, the text, which wouldn't look quite as nice. But in this situation, you know, it works really well. Okay, so that's a way of adding a point hotspot to open up an image, so an image pop-up, and we've added the image. Now, what I want to explore is the different ways and different images that we can pop up, because how I did this was just to add a point hotspot. But before I carry on, I think this is a very good time, one, for me to take a slurp of a drink because I need one, and also to ask Karen, do we have any questions?
Well, you better be very quick with that sip because there aren't any questions.
Right, good. I'm done. Moving on.
But I have a question actually. Well, it's not really a question, but
I'll take another sip then. Go on.
Yeah. You know, we have an image pop-up component, and I was wondering if you could show the difference between what you're showing now and what's in the component, in case people are wondering that. You know, just to show that there is something that's already made that you can use, but it's different than what you're building.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when we first started doing the Pano2VR 101 series, one of the things we did was build a skin, and all we did was look at the components, and we just used all the components there. But one of the things that the keen-eyed members of our customer base might have spotted or may not have spotted is the file path that I've used for the image loader. All right. So if we look at the point hotspot, I have used the path, the value $HU. All right. Now, if I close this and just open, no, I just open up skin up here. This is the art of having a separate skin button. You see, I can call a brand new instance of the skin, work on it, saving it, and just have it elsewhere. But if we call up the image loader here, all right, this is the one that comes with Pano2VR. It has got a close button. I'm not using the close on the external image to close it. It has physically got a close button, and that's anchored the top right of the screen. Now, people have said, well, why can't it be anchored top right of the image itself? But as I explained earlier, when you start to use percentages, the image loader and the image itself, because we're trying to keep the aspect ratio of the image, the actual external part of the image loader where the close button is anchored may be in the image, it may be one side of the image, and it's going to look nasty. The last thing you want is your close button, 2 inches inside the image itself. It's better just to bite the bullet and say, right, we're going to anchor the close button top left of the, or the top right of the screen, and that's where everybody knows where a close button is anyway, so you just might as well put it there, and then you're in no danger of closing it. But where I wanted to go with this is, if we have a look at its actions, this one has this extra little action, $R, and then we've got the HU there. Now, touching base quickly is, if you build outputs for WordPress, sometimes finding the path to an external image is difficult and it fails. So what that $ brackets are is it's almost trying to find its relative path. It's not, there is something else going on, but because it's R, just think of it of trying to find the relative path. Now, I've not included that in this webinar. So if you were to build this project exactly as I'm building it and put it into WordPress, you may find that when you click and open the image, it won't show. And if that's the case, then you need this $R, because for WordPress, you need to find its relative path. All right. So that's what's going on there. So that's really the major difference. Right. Anything else?
Yeah, cool. Thanks. That's I think it just shows, what's happening here as opposed to in the component. Well, Daniel's back from getting coffee, so I think we can start again.
Thanks,
Sorry,
Daniel. Right, cool. So, right, cracking on, or is there any more?
Nope, that's it.
Right, okay, let's crack on. Right, so we've added an image, and the way we did that was by selecting, so let's go back to properties, which we are. And so what we did was we added point hotspot, double clicked, and then we can select the point hotspot and we can set up all the data here. There are some other shortcut ways of doing this. As an example, if I open up my projects folder, here is my resources to my images. I can just, with hotspot selected, of course, drag and drop, boom, done. As soon as I do that, it automatically sets up the hotspot type for image. I just give it a title, so popup 2. It's already got the file path set in for me. It's all done. I just export it, click it, it's there, click, gone. So that's the one I manually put in, and this is the one I just dragged and dropped. All right, so that's another way of putting the image in. There is another way which is quite cool as well, and that's you can actually use an image pop-up from images that are not local to you. As an example, this, I'm just going to open up this. This is the wiki page for this building. All right, so if I go down here, I'm going to open up this image. All right, and I'm going to drag that in, drop it, boom, there it is. It says it's a point hotspot still. It's got the file path to it, and we're just going to call this, I deleted the other one, didn't I? So let's just call this popup 2 again. All right, let's put a space there, make it look good. And now when I click that, there is that image, and it's now fetched from the wibbly wobbly web. Okay, so we've now got another way of bringing an image in. So we've got, you know, local files. We can drag in local files. You can have a file on in your server. So if you've got a resource on your server, you can you could actually put the absolute path into that image, and you can show it in, you know, so you can have the one image on your server shown in multiple panoramas in your website. As an example, you can fetch these images from all over the place. But that's just to show you the power of this external image loader. The other thing with the external image loader is, I don't really have a file here to show you, but he says, oh, I might do. Let me have a quick look, because I've only just thought of this. No, all right, okay, I won't do this. But basically, if you have an animated GIF, if you bring an animated GIF directly in the skin and export it, it won't animate. If you want to see an animated GIF operating within the skin, you bring it in via the external loader. So if you've got, I don't know, you know, a 50 by 50 pixel animated GIF, you'd put in an external loader, make it 50 by 50 pixels big, and then you can externally load that image. Now, all right, this takes me, or brings me nicely on to another part of this that's very, very important. We've fetched images and we're using them all through the hotspots. So we've got, as I say, externally loaded hotspots. We've got local image hotspots, but they're all hotspots. What happens if I want to just create a button and just load an image? All right. Now, when I drag an image in via the viewer, Pano2VR knows, so let's have a look at the output folder. It knows to create, hang on, let's just clean up. Boop. It knows to load these images for me in the images folder. But if I'm bringing in an image externally, Pano2VR doesn't know where to get these. Or you could forget. So you could turn and say, right, I'm going to put this image in the output folder. So the path is going to be image.jpg because that's local to the other files. But what happens if you forget to put that image in and you upload it to a website and you click on the image and it's gone? It's like, oh, forgot to do it. So what we have is under the HTML5 output, we have our advanced tab. And when I open this, we have assets. Now this is quite cool because what this will do is you can select images that you want to use. So I'm going to select this. I can select a folder or files. I'm going to just select files here. Double click my folder, select both of those and add. And you can see it's going to add these two from the resources folder. And I've got popup1, popup2 JPEG. Okay. Now what's going to happen is it's going to put it automatically, it's going to create a folder in the output folder called assets. Now that's all lowercase. So these images will be in the location assets // depending what flavor of OS you're running, and popup1 JPEG, popup2 JPEG. Okay, so that helps you. It saves you having to remember to add these assets later. Okay, so when I do this, so these are the images that I want to use. All right, so if I now create the output, all right, here's another little nifty thing with Pano2VR. Generally speaking, with output files and everything like that, or with output paths, if you right button click, you can, I'm going to open in Finder because I'm on the Mac, you can open Explorer if you're on the PC, and that will then show you your output folder. And now you can see I've got my assets folder here. All right, when I double click that, those are those two images. So I know now when I'm working in the skin, if I want to reference those images, all I need to do is just type that path in. So assets, popup1, popup2, you know? So as an example, what I'm going to do is just break everything I've just done by showing the external image loader. All right. And I'm going to type in the path. So assets / popup1.jpg. All right. So theoretically now, when I save and close and export this, I should see that image because I've now typed that path in. Okay, cool. All right. And that just shows you that that is now obviously all working. So that's the path. But what I can do, I'm just going to copy this because I'm lazy, and I'm going to use the external image loader. The logic block. All right. And I'm going to say if the player width is less than, I don't know, 1024 pixels, change that image to show image 2. All right. Now you might turn around and say, well, this is not basic stuff, but you know, it's not difficult either. So we've now got 1 image and 2 images. See? How cool is that? All right. Now, this does bring me on to something interesting, being able to manipulate what images are used in the external loader. Because I'm just going to delete this. All right, don't need that. This is just purely for demonstration purposes. If I go back to the visible, all right, and deselect that, so we're now back where we are, all right, back where we should be. I could add a button. So let's just add a button. I'm just going to add a button here. I'm going to put it at the bottom. I'm going to make it at the bottom there. All right. Now, what I'm going to say is I want this, when I click this button, I want it to show the external image. I want it to show the screen tint, and I want to set a value. All right. So the easiest way for me to do this is to go back to an element that I've already added these actions to. So this would be the hotspot template. And I would select all of these. Right button click, copy. I can then select my button, right button click, and paste. All right. Now, the only thing I haven't done, actually, I will actually get rid of that because don't forget, this is not coming from a point hotspot, so it won't have, you know, the ability to read the hotspots description or the hotspots URL. We're actually taking this from a location. This button will be taking it from a location. So what I'm going to say here is mouse click. I'm going to set the value, and the value is going to be that assets / pop1.jpg. All right, and that needs to work with the image loader. All right, so the image pop. So I can just type that in. Oh, all right, perhaps not. I'll just select that then. Where is it? That's info. Image pop. Here we go. So that's where I'm going to load it to. So on mouse click, I'm going to look for this image and load it into this. All right. So that should, hang on, before I do, just going to make sure that I've anchored that properly. Yes, I did. All right. Okay. Otherwise, that won't be there when we export it or create the output. So let's do that. So I've got that now. When I click this button, we've got that working. Okay. So that's pretty cool. What I could do, just to show you, is add another action. So I'm going to copy this, add another one, and this one's going to open image 2. All right. So this is a bit confusing. I've now got one button that's going to try and open image 1 and image 2. Right. Okay. But we introduced last week action filters. Right. So this is what we're going to use. So I'm going to say that the placeholder for user data, do that again. So placeholder for user data, custom node ID. I know this sounds all very confusing, but courtyard. Right. Now, I'm just going to save that, click OK, save this, and explain why I've just done that. If you look under the user data, we actually gave this in one of our 101 webinars, the custom node ID of Courtyard. That is the only one that's got a custom node ID. All right, so Courtyard. So what I've said in this button, all right, is on mouse click, if that custom node ID equals Courtyard, use this action. All right. Okay. On this one, I'm going to say if placeholder user data custom, let's just Courtyard, right? But I'm going to say if it doesn't. All right. So where we're going with this is if I'm in a node with the ID of Courtyard, I'm going to open up this image. And if I'm in a node that doesn't have courtyard, I'll open up the second image. So let's just try that out, shall we? So here it is. Click this. I've got this image. Close it. Change nodes. I'm now into a node that doesn't have the ID of courtyard. Click it, and we've now got the second image. So, you know, with just one button in the skin, you can visit different nodes and you can get that one button to open up many different images. So you can have an image, you know, for each node. So yeah, that's a little use there of just a button in the skin, calling up and setting the path you need to the image loader, but depending on which node you're in. So depending on, you know, your circumstances, so which node you're in or whatever, then you can decide what image to load. Right. I do believe I've spoken to death about external images and external image loaders. We've talked about making them responsive. We've talked about all their settings. Yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, I really can't think of anything else to cover in this webinar. Do we have any questions, Karen?
Yeah, we do. I just wanted to comment on that last little trick that you threw in there. That was a really neat idea. So Akash is asking in reference to the assets folder, is there a file size limitation when you're adding images to the assets folder?
Not that I know of.
No.
No, this is... But obviously, think about it. Sorry, Karen, just do it. But think about it. If you're externally fetching images, you want them to be small. If they're too big, then when if you click the button to see the image, you're going to see nothing until that image loads. Now, in the let's close this. Let's close this. Let's close this and open this and open this and open this. What we did to combat that in the component is that we have a little animation that's a little whirligig animation, and you'll notice that it's behind the external image. So when there's no image there, you see through it and see the whirligig animation, but when the image arrives, it will then cover it. So that's what we did to combat that, in case you do want to open large images. But just remember, you know, the external image loader is calling the image. These images are not being preloaded, all right? They are called at the time that you're asking. So be mindful of the file size.
Right. And a follow-up question, I think, also from Akash, is, I'm going to read this exactly. When we said that we can add images from a website or a server, will that hold good for one image in a hotspot, or works for an image gallery component also?
You can. I mean, the image gallery component uses the external image loader. That's how it functions. And with the, you know, without getting into too deep, I mean, obviously people are coming onto this webinar, they're 101 int, but we do have a component in the forum, the forum's component forum, and it's called a gallery. And how that works is it loads the first image, right? And whilst it's loading the first image, there is a second image loader that's not shown, but what that's doing is loading the next image in the background. So when you change, say from image 1 to image 2, image 2 has already been loaded. So now you're seeing image 2. So now image 3 is being background loaded. Now we're doing this, and we're saying image, you know, underscore 01.jpg, image underscore dot, but that URL could be anywhere. That URL could point to, as in the gallery, local images, but could also be fetching images from, you know, the server or from other locations. So with a little bit of jiggery pokery, as they say, you could get the gallery to display other images or images from other locations.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So let's see, Tom says some questions, but Ricardo had just put in a request if you could just quickly review the min, max, vertical, horizon sizing on the scaling settings.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no problem.
I think we can.
Yep.
Then Thomas, I'll get to your questions next.
Right. Okay. So here you can see I've got this fixed size. Well, no, it's not a fixed size. I made it percentages. All right. Now the image loader is the only one that will keep the aspect ratio of the image it's displaying. All right. But so if I was to set this back to being fixed sizes, so I did start off with what, 400. Let's go back to 300. All right. So that's our fixed size. To make this is I'll put the background back on so we can see it. All right. So if I, okay. So let's do this and open it up. You'll see that we've now got this border top and bottom because I'm just trying to fit this image inside that. Now, what I could do is if we go back to the settings and say, let's do it vertically, what's going to happen is that the image is going to end up being wider than the external loader because it's going to fit it vertically. So here you'll see, yeah, because, well, you can't see any white background because the image loader is now a little bit smaller. So we're filling it up top and bottom, but we've now gone above the sides. All right. So that's that. Actually, Christoph has just written to me. It says about the resizing question. I'll read this out actually, because even though I'm showing you exactly what he's doing, Christoph's actually says, Min, the image will be resized to fit the smaller dimensions. Max, the image will be resized to fit the larger dimensions. Horizontally, the image will be, so it'll work out to fit, to resize to fit to the width. Vertically would be, as it is, and then fill. And it says, he says the image will exactly fill the width and height, probably be distorted. So it will just try and fill that space. So that's the guy that wrote it is telling me what's going on, but me showing you also. So yeah, if I was to do the, so fit it horizontally, it's a bit like as it was before, so it will fit horizontally, but of course the image loader is slightly bigger. But this is the trick with the image loader. It doesn't, apart from the Max one, Max, is it Max or Fill? Sorry, it shouldn't actually distort the image. It will keep the image's dimensions perfect, apart from if you use that fill. And if you use the fill, then it will squish the image to get it in the space of the image loader. All right.
Cool.
I hope that answered that question. Any more?
Yeah, I think so. And I think when it comes to these things, it's also just a matter of playing around, so, and I added what Christoph had written to the chat. So if anyone was curious.
All right. Actually, he's just agreed with me. so there's a result. I've got something right. It says Phil is the only one that will distort the image. Everything else in the image will stay in its same aspect ratios. So that's cool. All right. So yeah, I think that just about covers up or covers this webinar, unless we've got anything else. But
no, we have one more question from Thomas,
right.
Which goes back to the assets folder. And he just wants to clear up his understanding, I think. So he says, if I drag an image into, I think the viewer, or no, into the assets folder, it will be referenced in the folder output / images, or output / images. And if I drag
no, it will be referenced in the output as an assets folder. In an assets folder, it won't be in the images. All right.
Okay, so maybe yeah, okay. And he said, if I drag the image from the assets, it will automatically be referenced in the folder output / assets. I think, yeah.
No, I mean, right, if I can just, sorry to interrupt, Karen, but this is actually quite a good question. If you drag an image from a folder, so a resource folder, or from your project file, if you drag that into the viewer and you're creating an image pop-up using a point hotspot, that image will be saved in the images folder. All right. But if we are manually putting in a file path like we were with that button, all right, we need to know where that image is. And the biggest drawback before we did this, like with the assets, was you had to build your image or your tour. So you had an output, and then you had to manually drag in your images in, and then in the skin, you reference them in the skin. That led to every now and then people forgetting to manually drag those in. So our solution to that was this asset section. So if you are now wanting to reference external images, to save you having to remember to drag them in, if you add them to the project here, we will, as I say, if we right button click on a file path and open in folder, we will actually create an assets folder and put them there for you. All right. So that just saves you having to do this. So, but yeah, it does depend on how you've dragged the image in via the viewer. It will put it in the images folder here. All right. So this is where they are. All right. And if you manually add them, it will put in the assets. And just to throw a curved ball in there, when you added the image as a pinned image, it's pinned media, so it will throw it in the media folder. That is very confusing. I'm sorry I even brought that up. I'm sorry I'm even breathing. But the thing to remember is when you finished your project with Pano2VR, if you click the bin button, on the understanding that you haven't got thousands of input images, and if you click the generate output or create output again, what will happen is that bin button actually deletes all the contents of your output folder. All right. Now, the reason why I've done that is because I added that image as a pinned image and it went to media. I then deleted it. So it's no longer relevant for this project, but yet it was still in the output folder. So as good practice, whenever you're building a tour, you can experiment, drop in files, do whatever you want. But when you're done and you're ready to publish, hit that bin or trash can or whatever you want to call it, and then rebuild. If we have a look now and have a look in the, you'll see that we have no media folder because it's not needed for this project as is. So that's always a good tip. That is always when you're ready to publish, just delete everything from the output and regenerate, and therefore it will only include the images or resources and assets that project will actually need. All right, so there you go. 101 tip from Hopkey.
Thanks. Yeah, for me, I usually, my workflow is probably a little bit of a more work, but I don't like to throw away things. So I just rename the output folder to output 1 or output 2 or output 3. And then I have like a ton of them. But I think using the bin is probably a quicker way to do it, and it keeps your file system cleaner.
Absolutely. In the one of the things I did sort of say is, if you haven't got thousands of input images, if you have got thousands of input images, and obviously regenerating the output would take some time, what you can do is just open the output, delete everything apart from the tiles folder, because that's where your images are, and Pano2VR will not remap any of these images if I leave them. So as an example, if I was to
but they wouldn't either if you rename the file, if you rename the folder.
Oh, if you renamed it, it will still generate because it's not seeing a tiles.
It's just
so if I move to bin that lot, all right, basically if I now click regenerate, boom, done, because the images weren't, so it's very quick to add JavaScript files and everything else. So that's something else. And I do believe that in the next major release, you will get the option that if you click and hold the bin button to delete everything apart from the tiles folder. So that's, we've even made that easier to do, but don't ask when that's coming out because I don't know.
Yeah, cool. So I think there were a ton of cool tips in this one. So I think that's it. We've got everyone's questions answered, and yeah, so that's it for me. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll hopefully see you next week. What's next week? Video pop-ups, right?
It's video pop-ups, so same theme, doing videos, and yeah, there's lots of little tips and tricks for that as well. So, please tune in. See you next week. But yeah, as Karen says, you know, like from me, thank you guys for, coming and seeing the webinar. It's always a great feeling that, you know, customers like the product, and two, like to learn about it. And we always like to feel that after the webinar, you guys can create better, you know, outputs for your customers. And yeah, it's all good. Anyway, so that's it from me. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Ta-da. Bye.